Hello and welcome to Recovery Cave. My name's Christian, and in this video, I'm going to be talking about recovery. More specifically, what recovery actually is. Now, I think a lot of people see recovery in quite simplistic terms. You were drinking, now you're not drinking. Problem solved. Yeah. But recovery's not really like that. In fact, addiction and recovery behave in almost completely opposite ways. Addiction can feel very digital. It's either on or it's off. You're either drunk or you're sober. It's nothing or it's full on. Recovery is more of a slow, gradual, messy process. It's far more organic. Is something that you need to work consistently at without expecting instant results. It's a bit like planting seeds and then returning to water them every day and being prepared to do that without seeing any shoots for some time. An addiction is characterized by a lot of running and hiding from thoughts, feelings, and emotions. Recovery is about stopping that and starting to show up. So in this video, I want to look at what recovery is, what recovery definitely isn't, and why recovery is so much more than just stopping drinking or using. And just a quick warning, I explain addiction and recovery through metaphors quite a lot. We've already had gardening. Coming up, we've got robotics, first aid, and building houses. So if you're new here, this channel is all about addiction, alcoholism, and recovery, and trying to speak about it all in a straightforward, honest, helpful way. I've been in recovery for almost 10 years from alcoholism, and I have worked in alcohol and addiction support services for almost 8 years. I've worked in charities, I've worked in hospital settings, and I've worked in specialist teams. In my personal life, I have met a huge amount of addicts and alcoholics. And in my professional life, I've helped many, many individuals through addiction into recovery and into a new life. So let's start by looking at what recovery isn't. So, recovery is not instant happiness, permanent peace, becoming a completely different person, or entering some kind of enlightened utopia where life suddenly becomes easy. And it definitely isn't just, I've stopped drinking, therefore I'm recovered. Because lots of people stop drinking or using whilst remaining angry, dishonest, emotionally chaotic, resentful, or completely unable to cope with life. Don't get me wrong, stopping the substance matters enormously, but really it's the starting point. In early recovery, avoiding the substance in question is a very big factor. And that's a time when willpower and clinging on can briefly be useful. But in the long term, using willpower or clinging on would just be exhausting and miserable. Another thing that recovery isn't is one smooth upward line. And I think some people sometimes expect recovery to look like a video montage. Welcome to recovery. Now you're here, you'll enjoy better sleep, better skin, better relationships, more energy, beautiful sunsets every day, and unlimited cash in your account. And wouldn't that be lovely? And life does improve dramatically for a lot of people. But being in recovery can also involve things like boredom, anxiety, shame, grief, and relapse. Because the alcohol or the drugs represented the big plaster that you kept on putting over a deep wound. And recovery is the time where you remove that plaster and you have to deal with what's left festering underneath. And that can be painful, but it can also be the start of genuine healing. So I sometimes like to think about recovery as a gradual reprogramming of the brain. So, a way of breaking old unhealthy pathways and creating new, much healthier ones. Because addiction hardwires one core message, and that is escape discomfort. So, as an addict or an alcoholic, you can feel like, I don't like feeling like this and I want it to stop. And within 15 minutes, you can get your wish. Because of that, alcoholics and addicts don't really need patience. In fact, I think a lot of us are inherently impatient. And recovery is the complete opposite of that. It's slow, gradual, takes time. You've got to wait for things to finally settle in your head and make sense. And that represents a massive shift from the addict now brain. And that in itself can take a lot of getting used to. Over time, recovery becomes this slow, purposeful reprogramming of the brain and lets you develop essentially an entirely new way of interacting with the world. And that means a new way of coping, thinking, relating to people, regulating emotion, handling stress, experiencing pleasure, tolerating discomfort, and living in reality. And none of that happens overnight. And another way I like thinking of recovery is it's like when you stop drinking or using, it's like waking up and realizing that the house that you've been living in for the last X years is basically not fit to live in. The walls are crumbling, there's fire damage, the whole thing's a mess and needs to be condemned. So, recovery gives you the chance to knock that house down, raise it to the ground, and build a new house entirely as you want it. But if you're going to do that, then you're going to need to build solid foundations and you're going to want to take your time getting it right. And if you don't take your time and build solid foundations, then your new house will end up going the way of your old one. And for me personally, alcohol was like a low-level anesthetic to life. It blurred the edges for me on a daily basis for many, many years. It covered my anxiety and became my confidence. It became my medicine for anything that was wrong with me. It shielded me from unhappiness in my life and my lack of direction. And it covered up the fear of my rising debts. And it sent me to sleep every night. And when I got into recovery, there was a period where I realized that I genuinely couldn't function. It was like I'd never been a fully functioning adult, and now I had to figure it all out. Like how do I relax sober? How do I switch off? How do I socialize? How do I sleep? These things all sound pretty basic, until you realize that you can't do them. And in recovery, you'll probably find yourself asking yourself some pretty big questions. Questions like, what do you actually enjoy? What matters to you? What kind of life do you want? And ultimately, who are you? And that can feel exciting, overwhelming, frightening, and hopeful all at the same time. And I realized over time that recovery grows into pretty much every part of your life. It goes into your honesty, your boundaries, relationships, values, and loads of other things as well. Over time, recovery becomes less about just avoiding the drink or the drug and more about building a life that makes you want to escape less in the first place. And also, recovery never ends, not in my opinion anyway. I don't think there's a place that you can get to where there's suddenly no more work to be done and you are recovered. The work gets less intensive as time goes by and focuses more on maintenance, but anything that makes your life more fulfilling and moves you further away from your old life, that's recovery. And that's why I still describe myself as being in recovery after almost 10 years, and why I think I always will. And I think that if you ever get to a place where you think that you've completed recovery, that's when complacency can sneak in. And complacency can very quickly take you right back to square one. So, to summarize, being in recovery is way more than just stopping drinking or using. Although stopping drinking or using is a very important starting point. Recovery is also the opposite of addiction in many ways. That in itself is a very big shift and can take some getting used to. And recovery can and probably will make your life immeasurably better. But it does involve learning to live with the good times and also being able to cope with the bad times. And recovery can be slow, frustrating, painful, uncomfortable, deeply non-linear, but it's also one of the most rewarding and worthwhile things that you'll probably ever do. And if you're sitting there thinking, cool, blimey, this recovery lark seems like a lot of hard work, then you'd be right. It is a lot of hard work, but I remember hearing about that a lot in early recovery and expecting this grueling schedule coming my way. But I found that the work was actually really enjoyable. I was learning about myself and I was essentially investing in the future version of me. And it didn't take too long for me to realize that I got back what I put in, and every bit of effort was absolutely worth it. And in my next video, I'm going to be taking a look at what the ideal ingredients for recovery are. That should be coming next Friday, so keep an eye out for it. And if you've enjoyed this video, feel free to share it if you think it will help someone else. And if you could give it a like and subscribe to the channel, I'd really appreciate it. It will help the channel reach more people. In the meantime, take care of yourselves and I'll see you soon.